What's the goddamn line say, Tony?
Please do not use gendered language.
Then what? I'll be arrested, put in airport jail?
Look, you're going completely sideways, man.
It's a big club, and you ain't in it.
How dare you?
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
I'm Chris Hansen with Dave on NBC.
Jack Marius Tack Theratrix.
Hi, I'm Spartacus.
Jackson, Sacramento, he, him. Steven Seagal.
Sex offender guy.
I'm Keith Morris.
This is Mumbai Kutapi.
I'm Rick James, bitch.
Sorting through the lies.
The hijacker's passport was found blocks from the World Trade Center crash site, if you can believe that.
We cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
And uncovering the centuries-long plan for world domination.
Learning about Cuba, having some food.
Let's talk about Chinese people.
Have you ever been in a Turkish prison? Swangles and Fort Lauderdale.
I have sent 6 of my Libyan missiles to blow up the Sears hardware department.
Nothing could be more fun than jumping off a cliff with 2 German bisexuals.
Oh, you English are so superior, aren't you?
Thank you, comrade.
And now, Macroaggressions.
That's what assholes call it.
With your host,
Buddy, I don't know who you are, but you're about to get chlamydia.
Charlie Robinson.
Hey, Whitey, where's your hat?
You want to drop the blame on Charlie and say it's all Charlie's fault. He was a retard. I get some goddamn diuretic.
Welcome to Macroaggressions. I'm your host, Charlie Robinson. If you are watching us on Iconic, Rockfin, or YouTube, or you are listening wherever podcasts are served, we certainly do appreciate your attention. We know you have a million options out there. This show has been going on for about a year now. We've had the fortune of meeting some really interesting guests. We've been able to bring on amazing sponsors that are small businesses that are in the same field that we're in, that are thinking the same way that we're thinking, or they see the world in a similar way. We've got a new sponsor, and it's a damn good one too. So I want everybody to welcome Ken Swartz. He is the founder and chief science officer of C60 Purple Power. How are you?
Doing great. Glad to be on.
Well, I'm glad you're on too, because not only are you a small business, not only are you devoted to health and increasing health and doing it in a reasonable, rational way with amazing science, you also happen to be geographically close to me too. So I feel like I'm supporting a local small business, even though I know you're international now. But I love this. I love this product. Please. Let's just start from the beginning. Like, explain it to me like I'm a dummy, which I am. So what is C60?
Okay, carbon 60 is a molecule, 60 carbon atoms shaped like a little soccer ball, or what's behind me on the screen there. And I'll kind of give you a breakdown in the history of it. I guess its first thing was in the late 70s. And you remember Buckminster Fuller?
Yeah. Well, I remember. I mean, it's got a great name. I remember that.
Yeah, he actually theorized that this molecule would exist and it would have great health benefits. Now, that was decades before it happened.
What a guess. It's one thing to get theorized that something exists, and then it's another thing to say, well, it not only does it exist, but it will give you great health benefits on top of that. And even more impressive that he got it right.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, for people that don't know, Buckminster Fuller was a famous scientist and futurist, and he used to make geodesic domes. You know, the geodesic domes the hippies made. He was kind of all that, just for people listening. And you can see the structure is kind of like a geodesic dome. So that's, and all the scientist guys that actually discovered the C60 molecule were Buckminster Fuller fans.
That's great. That's nice of them to give a little nod to him in the naming of it.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, he'll be remembered forever. Well, basically the whole thing started with a guy named Harry Kroto. And there's this mystery called the DIBS, diffuse interstellar bands. And there's something between the stars absorbing in the infrared. It had to be a molecule because the band was pretty wide. But, you know, what kind of molecule could survive in the heavy radiation environment of space? So that was the big mystery. So I think Harry Croto always figured it was something like this, but it's one thing to theorize, it's another thing to prove things. Yeah. And so he got together with Richard Smalley and Robert Curl, and basically they discovered that C60 was being made in like the outer atmospheres of red giant stars. Okay. And if people are red giant stars, like our star will become a red giant star at the end of its lifetime. Right now it's burning hydrogen into helium. It's nice and yellow. Well, when it runs out of hydrogen, it's going to shrink up and get hotter and burn helium into carbon, and then it'll puff up because it gets a lot hotter. And then the atmosphere kind of goes away into space, but it's a really carbon-rich atmosphere. And as that star's atmosphere from a giant red star goes into space, a certain amount of it turns into carbon-60. And that's where it came from. And so Harry Croto, they've synthesized some by zapping a laser at a carbon block in a vacuum. And then they had to do the same thing. So they actually get this super frozen chamber where they made needles of neon frost. So it's really cold. And then they drop little C60 molecules on top of that neon frost. They were all cold too. And then they hit it with the infrared band, and it absorbed where they were supposed to. And that's kind of how they proved it was one of the sources of the dibs.
Whoa. Okay. That's way above my pay grade. I like the star aspect of it. So we are all made of star parts, right? Anyway, so just getting back to our roots by ingesting C60, I suppose.
Yes. And so basically they discovered it in 1985. There was originally 5 guys. The other 2 guys that died, I don't remember their names at the moment. But they gave him a Nobel Prize in 1996, which was pretty quickly after discovery. Yeah. But they figured they better do that. There wasn't any guys left. They were all pretty old when they discovered it. Yeah. So they got their Nobel Prize. And it was really hard to make because they didn't have technology. So for a decade there was just like virtually none of it. And finally, they figured out better ways of making it. And in one of the first studies, with Dr. Masu and a couple other guys that I'm kind of familiar with, is that they basically gave it to rats in huge amounts, right? Looking for toxicity. Because here's a new molecule, right? We don't know what this is. It comes from outer space. What's it going to do? Have you grow 2 heads or something? They just didn't know. So they tested with rats, and they found out not only wasn't it toxic, but it actually doubled their lifespan.
Whoa.
And so if that kind of set it all off, so then there's been lots and lots of science research since then, just dozens of papers.
So what you've created something that will make rats indestructible. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, yeah. They doubled their lifespan by they're Worcester rats, which are kind of wussy rats. Like they're not like street rats. They're like wussy lab rats. And it basically doubled their lifespans by completely eliminating the occurrence of cancers, cognitive decline, and other diseases associated with aging. So it turned them from wussy rats into strong rats.
And were they, I'm assuming that the common denominator here is that they were introduced to C60, and they said that is the reason for that. Were they able to explain why that is?
Oh, well, now we know. At the time, it was just like a kind of surprising discovery. In fact, they don't really know how long the rats would have lived because, they started the rats when they were in their late 20s, in rat years. Mm-hmm. And then they just continued it up until the control rats died. They had 3 sets of rats. The control rats didn't get anything. They had 1 set of rats which got olive oil. C60, by the way, has no solubility in water, so it has to actually be dissolved in an oil. Mm. And so it was in France, right? So they chose olive oil because it's commonly available and it's well characterized, and they probably had their favorite brand. Right. So they did that, and at that point, the second rats only got olive oil, and then because they were getting olive oil. Olive oil has health benefits, right? Mm-hmm. So they didn't want to just say, "Oh, this is only due to the olive oil." There wouldn't be a question there. And then they had the final group got the C60 dissolved in the olive oil. Okay. And so they cut them off at when the last control rat died. They stopped giving any of the rats C60 or olive oil, and then they kept living and they kept living and kept living. And it was, in fact, the last 2 rats had an unfortunate accident. So we don't know how long they really would have lived, but it was kind of time to publish. So they had a terrible rat accident, and then they could publish the study because it'd been 5.5 years. Those rats would only live a couple years at the most. And here's this 5.5-year-old rat. So they said, "Oh no, time to time to bring the study. So that's kind of how it all started. And but you can go like I have a website, c60purplepower.com, and if you go on there, you can go to science and the paper. You can go to get a bunch of science papers there. There's a link on the website, and so that can be found.
That's amazing. So were they able to then, after you've got rats that you double their lifespan, you've got to be looking at this substance going, okay, now what do we do with it? If it's doing this with rats, how do we make the test? Do we start testing this on human beings and see if it works for them? Did they then transition into human trials to just to make sure that nobody's dropping dead from this stuff?
They didn't do that. The only really human trials that have been done so far were one was two Japanese studies in which they used a C60 skin cream and significantly reduced wrinkles in Japanese women. Okay. And then we did a small study on eye health, and all 12 of the participants had significant increase in eye health. And well, I should probably tell the rest of the story, how I got involved in C60.
Please, yeah.
I was working on the metal oxygen fusion reactor project. That's what we call it, MOXIE. And since everybody else had done similar research, it was like the late doctor this and the late doctor that. And I didn't want to end up, in the late class. Right. And neither did I want the people I was working with. So I went out looking for extra protection. Even though we had shielding in the reactor, we had to get extra protection. I discovered this stuff called C60. And this is an interesting one. They gave one set of rats, got C60. The other set of rats didn't get any C60. They hit them with a fatal or multiple fatal doses of radiation. And all the control rats that didn't get any C60, they died. But the rats that got C60, either they all lived or maybe only one or two died when they had the multiple doses of death radiation. Right. And I said, when I heard about that, I said, that's the stuff for us. And so I went out and got a couple sources of C60, and we were taking it during the experimentation process, which was successful. But I kept taking some of it after it was over, right? Because it would kind of improve my health. Like the afternoon blahs you get, they kind of went away after you eat lunch, especially if it's got a lot of carbs. About 2:30, it's like, yep. So that went away. I was getting better sleep. I had a lot more energy. And so I said, this is pretty good. But I was taking it on and off. I wasn't very, faithful with it. It was just occasionally here. And I went in to my eye doctor about 7 months, and my macular degeneration, or DRUES, which is dry macular degeneration, had disappeared.
Whoa.
Yeah. My eye doctor was pretty surprised that, because in his many years of practice, he had actually never seen that happen. And
ooh.
Yeah, and the thing is, I talked to him about it, at the time, and he said, "Well, what about other medicines?" He said, "All the medicines that that could help you with macular degeneration, the side effects are so awful. It's just better to have macular degeneration."
Yeah. So, are there side effects from C60 so far? Though, have we found any?
Well, they did a toxicology study to see if they were gonna really go for it. So, like for right now, you can get health benefits at like 0.1 milligrams per kilogram. That's on the C60 you take. Mm-hmm. It kind of hangs in your body somewhere around 10 days. It hangs out in different organs at different times, and it flushes out because it doesn't only reacts with high energy oxidative radicals. And so it doesn't make any permanent chemical bonds with anything in the body. So it kind of washes out after about 10 days. But back to that study, they were giving 1 gram per kilogram of rat, which is the equivalent of that'd be like 10,000 times what a person would be taking. Okay. So that's pretty, and there were no negative health effects. Wow. Even at 10,000 times. Now, if you were to try that, C60 basically works as an antioxidant. Mm-hmm. It's a super powerful antioxidant, and it can reset itself. It actually, C60 likes to be positive, but unlike other molecules that release an electron into solution, right, that makes them positive, C60 actually pulls positive hydrogen ions from the environment and stores it on the inside of its cage-like structure. I don't know if you can see a little hydrogen ion hanging out there. And then when it runs into, let's say, an oxidative radical like an OH molecule, which is just basically a water molecule missing a hydrogen, it'll stick to the C60, and the C60 will give up a hydrogen ion and turn the OH back into a water. Okay. Does the same thing for like superoxygens, one of the nastiest oxidative radicals that your mitochondria produce. It's basically an oxygen with an extra electron. Mm-hmm. C60 will just pull the oxygen off the superoxygen, give it to one of the hydrogen ions, and then the superoxygen will go back to being oxygen and can go back into the Krebs cycle.
Okay.
So usually what your body does in the mitochondria, if there's oxygen dismutase, which turns superoxygen into a hydrogen peroxide, then catalyst changes hydrogen peroxide into an oxygen in the water. But C60 skips that step entirely. In fact, there's another thing. C60 fits exactly into the side groove of the RNA molecule, into the groove of the RNA molecule and the side groove of the DNA molecule. And it was pretty common. It's also created in meteoritic impacts from outer space. So it's hydrogen loving and fat loving. That means it'll track fats and amino acids. So maybe C60 might have had something to do with the origin of life on Earth, a deposit of C60 and fats and amino acids in some ancient early Earth, because it would make the ideal scaffolding for life to develop.
Whoa.
Which is why it has no toxicity at any level. See, if you took another antioxidant like vitamin E or vitamin D and gave it to some organism at 10,000 times the regular level, or even C, they would die.
Yeah.
But C60, no effect, because C60 only interacts with high energy oxidative radicals. It doesn't interact with like lower energy oxidative radicals. They're called ROSs. And your body needs those for signaling molecules like nitrogen oxide. That makes your blood vessels and capillaries dilate or contract. Mm-hmm. And that's one. And also there's some based on iron, sulfur, and zinc that your body needs ROS molecules for signaling. C60 doesn't interfere with any of those. It only goes after the high energy oxidative radicals, which do the big damage. And that's why it has no toxicity in any level.
Well, they call, one of the things on your site, it talks about it eliminates free radicals. And I've heard that terminology, or it interacts with free radicals. But I know the name, but I don't know exactly what a free radical is. It sounds like the audience at the Anarchapulco conference that I usually go to every year, but I got a feeling it's a little bit more sciencey than that.
Yeah, basically, free radical is something that's had basically a molecule like radiation will rip it off, and it's negative positive charge, and then it'll rip an electron from something else. Like you could have a water molecule, the OH radical is one of the most common. It's a water molecule that's missing its hydrogen. It's still got that electron on it, and that tends to go and like interact with other molecules in really destructive manners, especially like superoxygen. It'll cross-link proteins. So, the proteins have to have that nice little folded up thing. Well, it'll cross-link them. Now they don't work anymore. Or it'll tear holes in cell membranes. Free radicals are they're highly oxidative. And so they'll it's rusting. What I should say, it's rusting. It's causing rusting inside your cells, which is bad because it's just going to cause your various molecules in your cells basically to oxidize, to rust.
And then C60 will attach to those and then flush them out?
Yeah, well, C60 gets its positive thing. What it does, it just grabs them from the environment. This is positively charged. Most free radicals end up negatively charged. Mm-hmm. And because it's positively charged, it'll track them. And then it'll use one of those hydrogen ions from the environment that it stores inside of its cage to neutralize it back to oxygen. And it resets itself so it can do another free radical, another free radical, another free radical. And it just resets itself again and again and again. And that's why it's characterized at several hundred times more powerful than conventional antioxidants, because it can simply keep resetting itself. Like a vitamin E or vitamin D hits an oxidative radical, it's damaged, it's twisted up, and then it has to be rebuilt to be used again. Whereas C60 can do that itself with no biochemical cost to the body.
Wow, that's really smart. So it seeks them out and fixes them, doesn't seek them out and flush them out.
Yeah, charge tracks them and then neutralizes them back to water. And then resets itself again and again, hundreds of times a second, whatever it takes. That's why it's amazing. It's just.
So why don't we know about this? This sounds like magic to me. It sounds like something that should be on the lead story on the nightly news. Not that we're going to get not that we're going to get the truth on the nightly news, but this sounds like something that everyone should be talking about. Is it new? Is it being suppressed? What's the reasoning behind it?
It's just new. It takes a long time for things to work into society.
Yeah.
When I first came into it, after I discovered how good it was for me, I figured, I'm going to figure out a way to make this myself rather than relying on other people to do it. And especially when everybody was putting it out in just here, hold a second.
Ken's getting props for those that are listening.
See, everybody was putting it out, and seems like they raided my supply here. A bunch of them disappeared.
Oh,
so that's okay. Everybody's putting out an olive oil, extra virgin olive oil, which is pretty strong if you guys take it. I mean, extra virgin olive oil is great for you. Don't get me wrong. It's an excellent oil. It's great for the Mediterranean diet and stuff. But, if I was to take like a lot of it and olive oil, I'd probably having to go to visit the bathroom.
Yeah.
So what I started doing is I started putting it in avocado oil. So I got it C60 in avocado oil, which is because I can drink avocado oil is a whole lot. It's just as healthy as olive oil, and I can drink a whole lot more of it before I'll have like digestive things. And the other thing I also took, we have it by the way, we deliver in a nice little box here.
Yes, you do. I have the box here right in front of me. I was going to mention that when I got this, you guys sent me my first batch of it, and I opened it up and I was like, dang, it looks like, talk about presentation.
Oh yeah.
You guys did a really good job with that. And the bottle itself, it's well designed. I have a marketing background, so I look at stuff like that and I kind of geek out, and then you open it up and it all fits in there nicely. I was like, well, I don't know if this stuff is going to work, but the packaging is amazing.
Oh yeah. Cause it's a nice little holding box. You can use stuff. So we kind of had it, we wanted to make something eco-friendly that you can reuse too.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing I started doing it in was MCT coconut oil.
Okay.
And now I don't know if your guests, some of your guests probably are familiar with MCT coconut oil. MCT means medium chain triglycerides. Basically, they take the coconut oil and they distill it out. And, coconut oil is usually 16 chains. And then larger chains with MCT, they kind of distill out. Basically, it's 10 chain, 8 chain, and 6 chain carbon length oils from coconut. And maybe sometimes a little 12 gets in there depending on the quality of the distiller. And that stuff, that's really good. It's a saturated fat, but it doesn't make you fat, because what happens is your liver can turn the MCT coconut oil into ketones, which then your cells can use for as an immediate fuel source. So actually I did this because I have friends with diabetic problems and other glucose processing issues. And this is really, MCT by itself is really good stuff, because let's say if you're having a glucose processing issue, like low blood sugar, you can take the MCT oil, your liver will turn it into ketones, and then your cells can use that as an energy source, and you don't get glucose crash.
Well, the one that you sent me that I have is the avocado. And the reason why, and there's 3 choices here, 3 options here. And the reason why I went with the avocado is because it is gentle on your stomach. Yes. Now, when I take vitamins, when I take just regular old vitamins, I always feel sick. I always want to throw up. I used to take those food-based Whole Foods vitamins. Those would work. But anything else, I would feel bad. If I was taking supplements, man, it was just a gamble. Since I've been taking this, I have not had any of those issues. When you're taking a teaspoon of oil, so you're like, oh, is this going to get me? It hasn't gotten me at all. I haven't felt anything. So I was obviously very relieved with that. But I'll tell you what I've noticed is that since I've been taking this in the morning, like this morning, normally you kind of wake up slowly or what. This morning I woke up, immediately sat up, got out of bed, and I felt like I was shot out of a cannon. I felt like I've been taking it this week since I received it. And I have noticed something, and maybe it's connected. It might be connected, but I have been so productive. I feel like I'm optimized or something. I don't know if it's this. I don't know if it's had that much time to work. I don't know if this is psychosomatic, but since I've been taking it, I feel a whole lot better. Like energy levels a little bit higher. I feel a little bit clearer in my head. And you know what was funny is that in your instructions it says, don't take it after 2:00 in the afternoon because you'll be kind of hopped up. And I remember when I first got that and I was looking at my phone, it was 2:09. And I was like, ooh, I'm going to live dangerously. I'm going to take it anyway. And man, I felt great. So am I imagining this, or is this a byproduct of this, of your formula here?
Well, that's the first things people notice is an increase in energy and mental clarity.
Okay,
those are the 2 first things that you're going to notice, and then you'll get other things that happen, because C60 doesn't heal anything. What C60 does, it lifts the oxidative burden your cells are under so that they can function the way they normally do. And then, of course, now we're in the gray-haired crowd.
Yes, we are.
So that's kind of, as you get older, a lot of the antioxidants, the cells, because good health is cell health, good cell health. And in your larger cells, the mitochondria are the powerhouses of the cell, little organelles. And the larger cell supplies them with antioxidant. Well, as we get older, the level of antioxidants go down. So the mitochondria, which make ATP, the energy molecule of the cell, that goes down. So you actually have less energy as you age. That's one of the effects of aging. So when you take C60, the mitochondria actively uptake C60. They know how to use it, and it works as SOD replacement and a glutathione replacement. So now that the mitochondria can ramp back up to full production. So now you've got all this ATP in your cells, right? Your mitochondria go back to the way they were when you were much younger. And of course, you get an increase in energy. And of course, that goes to mental clarity because, and another thing is it hangs out in the endoplasmic reticulum, which because it's lipophilic, and that's where your proteins are built. So you can, now your proteins can be constructed much better. And so you don't have defective proteins. And then the third thing it does, which is on the hormonal side of things, is our mitochondria take the LDL cholesterol, the quote bad cholesterol, and they convert it into pregnenolone, which is the precursor molecule for all the hormones.
Okay.
In fact, that's one of the reasons why LDL cholesterol, the bad cholesterol, builds up in people as they get older, is because their mitochondria aren't working efficiently, turning it in pregnenolone, which then goes into your various hormones. So once the mitochondria are going, now you've got the pregnenolone, then that pregnenolone is going to be taken by whatever organ it is and or gland and turned into whatever. Like in the pineal gland, it'll turn it into melatonin. In the pituitary gland, the pituitary hypothalamus complex, it'll turn into human growth hormone and a whole bunch of other master hormones that your body needs. In the adrenals, will start putting out androgens, and that gets turned into testosterone or estrogen. Okay. And then also you'll get glucocorticoids, which help you regulate blood sugar. That's also made from pregnenolone. And then the final is, then there's also mineral corticoids, which is I should bring out one warning for people taking this. If you're on like a blood thinner, you need to consult with your doctor because C60, once you take it, it restarts the mineral corticoids in your adrenals. And the cause of the problem of your blood getting thin will go away. So if you're taking blood, thinning medicine and your blood's no longer thick, then you can have too thin blood and that can be a problem. So you have to consult with your doctor if you're doing that. Oh, and one of the other side effects is a large increase in libido for both men and women. So beware when you take C60. That will be another side effect you have.
Great. What can it do anything for hair loss? Because let me tell you.
Actually, it does slow down hair loss, and it actually brings back a lot of color. A lot of people that have like all white hair, they start taking C60, and it starts coming in black and pepper.
Wow.
But it's and it slows down hair loss. It doesn't restore it.
Well, it's too late for me.
So I got a little on top here that's missing. I've been taking C60 for years, and it's actually come back a little bit and slowed down. But yeah, there's some things that C60 is not going to.
That's okay. We can't listen. It can't cure everything. One of the things one of the other uses for this product that I think will be of interest to a lot of people is its use with your pets as well. Right? Oh. It works for your pets. Go into a little bit about that. How does that work? Who's it good for? Or, what's the details on that?
Well, the biochemistry between, let's say, humans and our furry friends there's very little difference, especially at the cellular level. I mean, they have the mitochondria, they have the pregnenolone, they have all the basic biochemistry for our cells is pretty much identical. And so, but when you're taking C60, there's basically two things you got to think about on dosage or amounts, and that is your age and your body size.
Okay.
Now, for instance, a person, let's say if you're a 170-year-old person, guy, girl, doesn't matter, somewhere around that, and you're in your 20s or 30s, a teaspoon a day might be appropriate. Okay, when you get a little bit older, got gray hair, you're probably getting up your late 50s or 60s. Probably what you're pushing is you probably want to go for a tablespoon a day.
Oh, okay.
And it's the same way because we had like a lady that we have like all these reports, and she found like the most effective. She had a really old German Shepherd, right, that was just lying around about to die, And so she's found that when she gave it about a tablespoon a day, I mean, it's back up, it's frisky, it's running around, it's like living its life again. So that's because it was a really old dog, and so you think what is it? German Shepherd goes for maybe 70, 80 pounds at the most, something like that. So a tablespoon for that for a really old dog really helped well. So probably if you're 70s or 80s, maybe 2 tablespoons a day might be appropriate. But I do pretty good at about a tablespoon a day.
Cool. It's one of the things that I found interesting about it was that it works on inflammation, the inflammatory response. And I think that's a problem that a lot of people have. I mean, we're trying to look for ways to curb inflammation through our diet and through taking other pills and things like that. How does this work on inflammation? What's the science behind that?
C60 is a super oxidative radical, it neutralizes oxidative radicals, super antioxidant. So usually when you're getting damage, it's like hydroxyl radicals or sometimes peroxynitrate, which appears to be able to neutralize both of those. And so let's say if you're going to have now there's 2 types of inflammation. First, there's acute inflammation. That's what happens. Let's say you twist your ankle, or you get some other cut or burn, and then you get the swelling, you get the redness, you get your joint becomes immobile, and that's a natural response where everything's your blood rushes in there. The metabolism increases. You got all the white blood cells fighting whatever it is. I mean, that's a natural effect. And then you have the other problem, which is chronic inflammation. And that's where the problem is, because that's like arthritis. That's a chronic inflammation. Heart disease. That's a chronic inflammation. What's actually those LDL cholesterols get oxidized, and then they stick to the inside of your arteries. And then your immune system kind of attacks that, causing inflammation. Again, calcium builds up to slow that reaction down, and then you start getting arteriosclerosis. So yeah, that's a cause, and cancers. I mean, just chronic inflammation is they estimate over half of the diseases and deaths that people occur in our modern age come from that. And so C60 does a whole lot of things. First off, if you have it in your body, you'll have if you're taking, you could have 10 to the 17th molecules of C60 in your body while you're taking it. And I mean, that's a huge number, and so they go everywhere. And so what they'll do is, where if you have a damage, something's happened with the damage, the damage that's caused is actually the oxidative radicals are causing the damage. Those chemicals come apart in your body, they cause oxidative radicals. And then what happens, that's causing more damage. And also the macrophage type 1 or type A that they call it, it's going to pick up these oxidative radicals and other damage products, and then it puts out cytokines that cytokines bring in, like the neutrophils, and they open up the capillaries so that the fluid leaks out, and you get the whole inflammatory response. So C60, first off, it's knocking out those oxidative radicals before they cause damage, before they activate the macrophages. And then the macrophages also have C60 in them, and they usually have oxidative radical signaling systems where they bring in high energy oxidative radicals saying inside the cell, and that signals them to release the cytokines and other things. Well, C60 kind of moderates that response.
Okay.
And it just moderates it all the way around. So instead of having a huge, gigantic over response, you have a balanced and kind of homeostasis immune response to an invader.
And you're talking about a cytokine storm? Is that what you're talking about when it's a massive outburst of it?
Yeah, it's because it's an imbalanced immune system. You're basically overreacting to things. And like the people that take C60, a lot of them will have a huge decrease in allergies. The allergies go away because instead of reacting to something that isn't a threat, the immune system kind of functions more efficiently. And so it recognizes threats, and it doesn't react to things that aren't threats, and it also reacts more appropriately to things that are threats. So you don't get that hyper explosion of the cytokine storm, which is what's a lot of people for things we can't talk about on the internet.
That's right. Yeah. Well, but speaking of some of the things that we kind of can't talk about, you have GMO foods, and they're toxic to you. And and we hear about them causing inflammation. Well, hell, we hear about regular tomatoes causing inflammation. Tom Brady saying, "I never eat regular tomatoes because they give me inflammation." But we've got GMO foods, and they're becoming more and more a staple in our society, unfortunately. Something like C60, does it have a reaction? Does it come in when it interacts with the GMO type foods? Does it provide some sort of counterbalance for that, or does it? How does that work, or does it work with that?
Well, basically, it's the breakdown of like glyphosates and other nasties that create oxidative radicals, and then it's actually the oxidative radicals that go and do the damage. Well, C60 neutralizes those oxidative radicals before they can do the damage. So you get a minimal immune response and you get a minimal damage in your body. That's like the thing that's like when you get hit by radiation, like those rats,
right?
You got hit by a fatal dose of radiation. Usually what happens is the radiation doesn't cause the damage. What happens is the radiation strips, basically it's a common one. It strips like a hydrogen off a water molecule. And now you've got a hydroxyl radical, which then goes out and attacks some other molecule and damages it. Well, C60 neutralizes that before it happens. So you don't get that oxidative breakdown, because usually what happens is the oxidative radical will wreck one molecule, it wrecks another, and it's like a whole chain reaction. C60 stops the chain reaction. And also C60 is really great at healing the gut, because it comes in really nice oils that are healthy for you. But also that's, most of your immune system is in your gut, like 50% of it. And what happens is your epithelia cells, intestinal epithelia cells, those are on the, the inside of your intestines. They need little proteins to stick together. And if they can't get those proteins to stick together for various reasons, then you get leaky gut syndrome, where there's gaps between the cells, and then food particles or bacteria, digestive enzymes or whatever leak in there, and then the whole immune system responds to that. When C60 gets into the because you take it orally, gets in there, it like really strengthens the epithelia cells on the inside. And then those epithelia, because they got enough ATP and their endoplasmic reticulum is working now, they can manufacture those proteins so they can stick together. And also those epithelia cells will secrete substances into the intestine, which are actually meant to nourish good bacteria. So now you'll get a layer of good bacteria on top of your epithelia cells on your intestine.
Okay.
And that can protect you against the nasties and the bad bacteria. Because like people take C60, they have irritable bowel degrees or Crohn's or whatever, and it goes way down because C60 is in there fixing the problem, getting the gut healthy, and then helping the gut microbe and do that. Now, one thing, C60 can't replace good diet, or exercise, or you do need to supplement, because of our modern foods today are so depleted in necessary nutrients, minerals, and stuff. Because the soil, we mine our soils instead of like we're treating them organically so that we produce healthy foods. And I mean, you can eat organic, you can drink unfluorinated water, which I certainly suggest. Getting the right sleep is good, and kind of avoiding bad lifestyle choices, those fried foods and alcohol and other recreational substances in moderation. But no matter what you do, some of that stuff's going to get through, right? You go out to eat somewhere. So that kind of C60 also kind of covers that, because it'll take care of that little extra. And then there's electromagnetic radiation we're getting, right? And I'm just not talking ionizing radiation like gamma rays. You got all this 5G stuff and these other things. And, they say, oh, that shouldn't hurt anything. Well, now they find out that stuff jams open the calcium gates. Voltage calcium, we got little pores in our cells, voltage gated channels that let calcium in and out of our body. They pump it in and out. Well, when you get hit by that stuff, it'll jam them open. You get calcium rushes into your cells, causes all kinds of oxidative damage, especially peroxynitrates, and then you start getting cellular damage. Well, C60 can help that, though I would recommend just trying to avoid that higher radiation environment if you can.
Yeah.
I mean that's just the problem that we live in our environment. So C60 gives you that little extra boost, that little bit of protection.
Well, there's another substance out there that does have a lot of public relations behind it, and it sounds similar, and that's CBD. What is the difference between what CBD does and what C60 does?
Oh, they're two different things. C60 is basically an antioxidant, powerful, and that protects against damage. CBDs have a whole bunch of others, because there's actually CBD-like receptors in our brain for pain and hunger. But no, they're in certain parts, but they're not in the brainstem. And they have all various things in our gut and things that work that. So that's why you can't ever overdose on CBDs or THCs, because you don't find those receptors in the brainstem. They're more in the higher brain levels, and they interact with various biochemistries in a positive way. Like they can reduce pain. CBDs can reduce pain. They can help with a lot of like balancing the mental levels people have. So yeah, they're totally different. It acts on a biochemical level with a whole bunch of body processes, where C60 does not interact with any body chemical processes. C60 doesn't interact with vitamins or minerals or nutrients or drugs or medicine or anything. It is almost inert. It's like a cousin of diamond, basically. It only interacts with really high energy oxidative radicals like superoxygen, the hydroxy radical, and we think also peroxynitrate. Okay. And that's another nasty. When superoxygen gets together with the nitrogen oxide, it makes peroxynitrate, and that's a nasty. And we think C60 interacts with that.
What? Tell me a little bit about the company. How'd you start it? What? I understand the story behind it, but did you at some point just say, "This is too good to be true. I got to go out on my own and do this"?
Well, it kind of started itself, because once when I first, I learned about the macular degeneration going away on me. Well, I told one of my friends at that time I'd started making that's why I made this stuff, the MCT coconut oil, because he had like severe wet macular degenerations. He had all kinds of pictures. He had all kinds of lesions on the inside of his eyes, and he also developed type 2 diabetes, which kind of contributed to the whole thing. Actually, if you go to we have a little C60 channel on YouTube. It's called C60 Purple Power, and you go and see the episode Eyes on C60, and you can actually see his before and after photos. He was the engineer on the Moxie project. So he let me use his before and after photo, and he just had like horrible lesions on the inside of his eyes. He was an engineer. He's going to lose his business, right? And after a year of taking C60 Purple Power MCT, a tablespoon a day. He's an engineer. He records every day on how long it takes for him to walk the dog. Right? He's that kind of engineer. Yeah. So he found that a tablespoon a day of the MCT, and he took that for a year, and you can see the before and after pictures. Complete all of the lesions went away and his eyes are healed, basically, which is, there's nothing that can do that. Virtually nothing.
That's amazing. So you've got this bottle. So this bottle right here is 16 ounces.
Yeah.
How many servings are we going to get out of this?
If you're teaspoon, that's like 2 months, 2.5 months. If you're doing a tablespoon, you're older, it'd probably take you a month and a half. If you're really, hitting it on. And with that, so that's basically what I started doing. Is I started making C60 for friends, family, myself. Yeah. Right. And I was giving it to my healthcare practitioners, most of them alternative, and they were using, and they said this is great. They started giving to their patients, so I started making more and more, and just kind of one thing led to another, and here I have this company. I finally said, I'm making so much of this, I just better incorporate and go for it.
Right. So when did the company start?
Back in, I think, October 2016.
Okay, cool.
And I was doing it for a year. I basically was a C60 milkman. I'd drive myself up and down the Front Range, supplying alternative healthcare practitioners, other people with C60, until, and I also was supplying internet people I knew. And one day, Cliff High mentioned C60 on a Sarah Westall show. Mm-hmm. The thing the company just blew up. It got just amazing amounts of sales. And that also kind of started the whole C60, because before there was just a handful of people, right? It was geeked out scientists, who learn about it, a couple tiny producers that, maybe had a few customers like me that had, were just tiny market. And then it got blown up into the woo-woo market. So all the people in the woo-woo area, in the alternative health thing, they started knowing about it. And so it still hasn't broken into the mainstream, though it's starting to do it, because I know Jay Campbell, he uses C60 product. I help him.
I know Jay.
He has a hair thing. I help him on supplying him the stuff that becomes part of his hair care product. But he said, like 2 years ago, none of the doctors, especially the kind of doctors he had, the alternative medicine doctors, and these are MDs, right? They didn't know about a C60, but now they all know about C60. But they generally are a little bit hostile to it. because it's not a pharma baby. And it can't be patented, and they're not going to make money off of it.
Well, I'll tell you what, Cliff High once said a couple of years ago, you should get into Bitcoin. It's going to the moon. And I didn't listen to Cliff High. And he was right about that. And he's been right about a bunch of other stuff. So if he's saying good things about C60, I'm going to pay attention, because I have come to learn that if I make one mistake, that's understandable, but I don't want to compound it. So my first mistake was thinking that Cliff High was out of his mind, and I will not make that mistake again, because I've been listening to him for the last couple of years now, as he's talking about the year of woo and all of that good stuff. So yeah, he's the woo woo guy for sure. So you start this company in 2016, which is relatively recently. You start up and down Colorado. Now this thing is expanding. Is this an international operation you've got going here?
Yeah, we sell internationally. It's not like a big part of our market, but it's most of our market's domestic in Canada, though customs in Canada is a pain these days. Oh, yeah. And yes, but it's international, and it's known around all around the world now. And there's lots of other C60 companies now. There was like originally like just 3 or 4 of us, and now there are just dozens.
Well,
but that's the way it is.
I think it's important for people. I mean, at least with my audience, my audience is like, we're looking for companies, or that think like we do, which is we're distrustful of the media, we're distrustful of the government. We like to support small businesses that see things the way we see it. We're more than happy to get involved in something if it's going to improve our health as well, because we just spent the last year of 2020 being told that the only solution to the corona situation is to sit in your house and wait for a vaccine. I don't subscribe to that philosophy. I don't think you do either. This seems like it is a little bit more of a proactive approach to our health, right? I mean, that's got to be a...
Yes, it is. Well, we can't talk about certain things.
I know.
But we can talk about other things.
Okay, let's talk about other things.
Here's something. This is something about the flu, which doesn't happen anymore.
Right.
Since taking C60
been cured.
Power for over 3 months, customer thing, I have experienced a great deal of what others have experienced, with clarity of thought, energy, no flu or upper respiratory illness, when all my coworkers have been coming down with severe flu symptoms. I'm getting fitter with increased energy workouts. My body is speaking a different language. Thank you, C60 Purple Power. I've been singing your praises, and that all could benefit from the discovery. That's Dennis in Florida. And we've had a lot of kind of reports like that. Well, it strengthens the immune system. Because one of the other things we found about C60 is, I'll kind of tell you, this is a story. We had we're still discovering. There's a lot of animal studies, just a handful of human ones. We were one of the first in that area. But we had a guy who started taking C60 when he was 54. But before he did that, he took a telomere test, just because that's something that he did. And telomeres, for your audience members, they're like little strands of DNA that wrap around the end of your chromosomes, kind of like a thread at the end of a rope, so it doesn't fray. And every time your cell divides, the telomeres get shorter and shorter until basically your chromosome starts to fray. And at that point, the cell goes into what is called senescent. It can't and it won't reproduce anymore. And it kind of turns into a zombie cell. Well, a lot of times those cells don't want to go away, so they basically change to make it more acidic in the cell. They stop providing antioxidants to the mitochondria, so the mitochondria can't function. The cell starts doing a lot of... there's 2 ways. You can use oxygen burning, or you can use fermentation. So the cell starts turning to fermentation, which is only 1/20th as efficient as oxygen burning. Well, when you take C60 goes into your cells, uptaken by the mitochondria, and then they got all the antioxidants they need, so they can turn to full functioning with ATP and pregnenolone. But they also send little messengers just to this nuclear DNA saying, hey, we're ready to reproduce, we're ready to go, whatever. And if they don't get the right message back, they cause apoptosis, which is programmed cell death. And then what happens, that cell breaks into apoptotic bodies, which don't cause inflammation. Phagocytes come in there, gobble them up, and recycle them. And for my friend, so he had taken C60 for 3.5 years. He went in to get another telomere test, and he had the telomere length of a 38-year-old.
Whoa.
And it's not because C60 lengthened the telomeres in existing cells. It's basically because C60 wiped out the senescent cells, the zombie old cells that aren't contributing anything to your body. And then it stimulated stem cell production to replace those missing cells in your body. And stem cells are like baby cells in your body, and they have a full set of telomeres. So they get converted to whatever tissue type. They could become heart cells, brain cells, muscle cells, skin cells, immune cells, especially. All of those cells, they come from basically stem cells. And so what happened is basically the senescent cells got wiped out. They were replaced by, stem cells, which have almost a full set of telomeres. And so literally he got younger.
Wow.
But yeah, we have an 80-year-old billionaire in Russia who uses our stuff. And he used to go in and he have to get like 4 or 5 blood draws to get enough stem cells to do stem cell treatments.
Mm-hmm.
Now he only needs to get 1.
Whoa.
So it greatly increases your stem cells. Now, another thing stem cells do, when you have like an army of stem cells ready to convert, like if your immune system gets challenged, new immune cells are needed. And if you don't have the stem cells to step up to the plate, well, you don't get an immune response or a healthy immune response. And so when you get C60, you got a huge army of stem cells ready to become immune cells or whatever cell you need. And then your immune system can function really effectively, because C60 not only makes all the immune cells work better, but it gives you that available army of stem cells to convert to new immune cells and go from there.
What's the downside? You can't have all this benefit without there being some sort of downside, right?
You better have a good retirement plan.
Okay.
Because you're going to live a long and healthy life. Because it'd be suck just to live a long life if you're unhealthy.
Yeah. We always forget the healthy part too. I want to live a long life. Really? You can live like in prison?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but C60 for the rats, like the rats and the mice studies, they live long and healthier lives basically until they hit their genetic expiration date and went over the cliff. So, yeah, you probably need to make sure you have a good retirement plan. Yeah, because you'll have a healthy long life, and it's not good to be poor when you're older. But you'll keep a clear mind, because that's another thing they found in mice studies is it prevented cognitive decline. So you're not going to catch all those dementia type things that people get. And I want to say it again for all those things listening there, the algorithms. C60 doesn't heal anything. What C60 does, it lifts the oxidative burden your cells are under, so that your cells can function the way they did when you were much younger. And that was probably in good health.
What's next for the company, for C60 Purple Power? Where are you guys going from here? You've got 3 products plus pet products, or is the pet?
Yeah, we got 3 products, and pet products are basically the same. We got a few other things that are coming up here in the line. The main thing we're interested in, because the market was tiny, and then you blew it up 100 times bigger than it used to be, right? And then we have all these competitors and all that kind of stuff, but it's still a tiny market. I mean, instead of fighting with your competitors and doing all that kind of crazy stuff, which I'm not really interested in, because we make, I'll tell you, first off, we have, the big boys and the people that have been there for a while, they make a really good product. And C60 is expensive. High purity C60 costs more by weight than gold.
Whoa.
That's just the way it is. So if you see, there's a lot of these companies come in there and you see in these really cut bargain basement values on, a C60 product. Well, there's a reason for that. Either there's a lot of guys out there, a couple guys out there are selling products with no C60 in them at all, because we've done testing. And then a lot of them are selling C60 with, they're saying they put a certain amount in, there's like hardly any at all in the product. So that's why our products cost expensive, and so do the other guys. If you want a good quality C60 product, it's going to cost you, and if it's not costing you a lot, there's probably a reason for that.
Don't go buying C61.
Yeah, just and you don't need much. A teaspoon to a tablespoon a day, but it's like anything else. It's you can either buy quality or you can buy something and just waste your money. It's whatever your choice is there.
Well, it's funny because, once you have poor health, there's no amount of money that you would pay anything to feel better. So we're trying to be, part of the purpose of my podcast is to try and be proactive with things, to try and talk about things, get a little bit out ahead of the curve. We're not going to sit around and wait. I'm not going to sit around and wait for the government to take care of me. I'm not going to sit around and wait for the CDC to tell me if I'm sick or not. I'm not going to trust these organizations. I'm going to have to do it myself. I'm going to have to educate myself on a variety of topics. I'm going to do the best I can. I might not get it right every time, but I see something like this as just another aspect. The people that listen to this show are going to hear about things that are off of the mainstream media talking points. You're not, and to some people, that may invalidate them simply because they're not being talked about in the mainstream media. But I keep reminding people, listen, just because, but actually by the time it's on the mainstream media, it's probably garbage anyway. We're talking about these things well in advance. If this is the first time you're hearing about it, well, it's because this is a product that is coming into market. You are going to start to hear about it in the future. We understand, just because the mainstream media isn't saying this product will save you doesn't mean that it isn't saving people. It's very important. So we'll wrap up with just some final thoughts on where we're going and the product and who's a candidate for products like this.
Well, anybody wants to keep their health. I mean, we have, special forces are using it and astronauts and stuff because of radiation protection. Not that you're going to hear that. But no, it's basically one of the things I talk about. This is really just introduction to C60, is people need to take control of their own health.
Oh, yeah.
Look, if nobody's going to do it for you, you have to make those decisions. If you're letting somebody else tell you what to do, you're in trouble. It's like with good nutrition. You got to go out there and find, read the labels on your products and find out what's healthy to eat and what's not. You've got to do that. You got to do your exercises. You got to do supplementation. You've got to did all the other things, avoiding the toxic waters and things. These are all, you have to take, responsibility for your health, like a sporting incident. I mean, come on. You looked at the deductibles and co-pays on insurance. Give me a break. You don't want to get sick. 70% of the bankruptcies in the United States are due to illness, and most of those people had health insurance. So, and so it's just, and right now it's especially true. And it's not, taking control of your health. This is something that can help you take control of your health. So you don't get those problems that cause further problems. That's kind of the way it is. And how much is health worth? But there's also a lot of things you need to take control of in your life. Like, for instance, what happened in Texas here, right? You need to take responsibility. Things can happen. You should be, I call it a prepper or whatever. But if you'd been doing your prepper and you had like stored water, stored food, other sources of electrical power, you would have been way ahead of the thing. And so all of those things, there's some rough times coming here. The financial system is like pumped up like a giant bubble. I have an economics degree and I could talk about all of that. That's what I used to do. I used to consult internationally with governments and stuff way back in the day on that. But this is like the everything bubble.
Yeah. People
seeing the real estate prices, the stock prices. Look, the economy's tanked like that and stock prices are going to the roof. Unemployment's going like, it's just, they're creating money out of thin air. In fact, I was reading that's one of those guys, because I'm on the internet world too. What is it? The 40% of all the dollars that have ever been created in U.S. history were made last year.
That is a recipe for disaster.
That generally doesn't end well.
No, that ends in Weimar Republic wheelbarrows full of cash to go buy a loaf of bread sort of situation.
And that's why we see the run up in the stock market, the run up in real estate prices, the run up in all of this. But it's not because these things are getting more valuable. It's just because they have this money fire hose that they're spraying for the big boys, by the way. You don't get, they'll send you a $1,200 check. Oh, here's a $1,200 check for not having a job for X number of months. And we're going to cut your unemployment off here before too long, Oh man. Well, don't get me going on that way. Cause I'm also in that woo-woo space on, because personal responsibility, you got to look out for yourself, because obviously those people in Washington don't give a damn about you.
Not even a little bit. No, they do not. Well, I'll tell you what, Ken, you've been nice enough to set us up and our customers up with a promotional code that they can use. If people go to C60purplepower.com, buy something and use the promo code MACRO, you will save 10% and you will be investing in yourself. You will be investing in your health. They can print all the money in the world, but if you don't use some of it to invest in yourself, you are going to be missing the boat. Ken, you are the best. We're going to have you around as a sponsor for a very, very long time. People that are interested, they can connect with me. I really encourage people to get on board with this product. Look, what's the worst that can happen, right? It's just going to make you feel a little bit better. You're going to spend a little bit of money to do this. Give it a try. Support a local business, at least local to me. Support a business that is coming at this and trying to provide solutions to problems that we're facing. Ken, thank you so much. Everybody, if you like this episode, please take 2 seconds and share it. Get it out there. The algorithms hate us, and we know that, but we have ways to deal with them. Thank you, everybody. Take care.